Welcome to Spookin' Softly, where darkness breathes and shadows whisper. I'm your host, and tonight we venture somewhere you may not return from unchanged. Find a quiet place, turn down the lights, and let the story find you. Tonight's episode, Don't Look Back. Don't look back. The old asphalt of Elm Street held the last lingering warmth of the day. A faint memory of the sun Elara had been seeking just hours ago. Now, a cold, thin breeze snaked around her ankles, teasing the hem of her sensible tweed coat. It was past 9, and the small town of Oakhaven had long since tucked itself into bed. Most folk in town kept early hours, especially the elderly. But Elara had been stubborn tonight, lingering at the library with a new collection of poems, a small, familiar rebellion. She liked the quiet of the night sometimes, the way the world seemed to hold its breath. It made her feel noticed, in a way the bustling daylight never did. Not by anyone living, of course, just by the vast, indifferent darkness itself. A shiver, not entirely from the cold, traced its way up her spine. Arthur used to walk her home every single night, after his shift at the mill, after her bridge games, after even the most mundane trip to the general store. His arm, a sturdy anchor, always ready. Now, all she had was the echo of his footsteps in her mind, a comforting phantom beat against the silence of her own. She missed him, a deep, persistent ache that had never truly faded. The streetlights, sparse at the edge of town where she lived, cast pools of butter-yellow light on the corners, leaving long, hungry stretches of shadow in between. It wasn't quite pitch black, but it was deep enough for the imagination to play tricks. As Elara stepped out of one such pool and into the next expanse of dimness, she heard it. A soft, almost imperceptible crunch behind her, like dry leaves underfoot. She paused, straining her ears. The wind had died down, leaving an unnatural stillness. Her own breath seemed to boom in her ears. Nothing, just the faint hum of distant power lines, a sound she usually ignored. It must have been the wind, a late gust stirring a stray leaf, or perhaps a squirrel, bold and unafraid of the dark. She walked on, her pace unchanged, trying to dismiss the slight prickle on the back of her neck. Then, again, a clearer, more distinct crunch. This time, it wasn't just a leaf, it was rhythmic. Two soft sounds, not quite matching her own steps, but following. Closer now. A nervous flutter began in her stomach. She stopped dead, her heart giving a sudden, panicked lurch. She spun around, her eyes scanning the inky space she'd just traversed, straining to pierce the gloom. Nothing. The shadows remained still, impenetrable. No movement, no silhouette, no one. Silly old woman, she muttered to herself, her voice a reedy whisper against the vast quiet. Imagining things. She tried to laugh, but it caught in her throat, a dry, rasping sound. It felt too quiet, too still. The kind of quiet that pressed in on you, that felt less like an absence of sound and more like a deliberate, heavy presence. She resumed her walk, a little faster this time, telling herself it was just her nerves. Her house wasn't far now, just 3 more blocks, past the old abandoned gas station, then her own little haven with its overgrown rose bushes. She focused on the thought of her warm parlor, the half-read book on her bedside table, the purr of her old furnace. Anything to distract from the gnawing unease that had settled in. But the footsteps, they were back, clearer now, distinct. The sound of dry leaves, yes, but also a faint, almost imperceptible rustle of cloth. Or was it just the echo of her coat? She quickened her pace further, the rhythmic crunching behind her accelerating to match. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't a squirrel. It wasn't her imagination. A cold sweat broke out on her brow. Someone was there. Someone was following her. Her breath hitched. She had to know. Swallowing hard, Elara turned again, sharply, hoping to catch them off guard. Her gaze darted into the darkness. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The street remained empty, the shadows clinging to the fences and tree trunks like shrouds. But this time, the silence that followed her turning felt different. It wasn't empty. It felt held. Like whatever was there had simply frozen, seamlessly blending into the backdrop, waiting for her to turn away again. A chill seeped into her bones, far deeper than the night air. It wasn't just cold, it was a wrongness, a sense of something not quite right with the world around her. She was almost panting now, a small, wheezing sound in her chest. Her legs ached, but she pushed herself harder. The streetlights seemed further apart, the dark patches between them longer, swallowing her whole. Each step was an effort, each shadow a potential hiding place. She felt utterly exposed. Her mind raced, frantically searching for an explanation. A prank? But who would bother? A thief? She had nothing of value on her. The only thing she carried was her fear, a heavy, suffocating weight. She was an old woman, frail and easily preyed upon. This feeling, this absolute conviction that something was just out of sight, watching her, waiting for her to falter, was paralyzing. She imagined eyes, glittering in the unseen, focused solely on her. The next streetlight offered a brief, blessed reprieve. In its weak glow, she saw him. A young man, tall and broad-shouldered, walking towards her from the opposite direction, his head down, engrossed in his phone. He looked harmless, ordinary. A flash of desperate hope ignited within her, a human presence, a witness, a shield. Her chest tightened. Could she ask a stranger for help? In Oakhaven, everyone knew everyone. But this young man, she didn't recognize him. He must be new or visiting. Her pride warred with her terror. But the footsteps, though momentarily silent now that another person was near, felt like a promise of their return, more menacing than before. Her fear won. It had to. She slowed her frantic pace, forcing herself to appear calm, though her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. As he drew closer, she forced a tremulous smile. "Excuse me, young man," she began, her voice a thin, unsteady thread. He looked up, surprised, pulling an earbud out. He had kind eyes, she noted, even in the dim light. He looked to be in his early 20s, dressed casually in jeans and a hoodie.
"Everything all right, ma'am?"
he asked, stopping a few feet away, a slight frown of concern on his face. His voice was gentle. I apologize for bothering you. It's just," she paused, glancing over her shoulder instinctively, though she saw nothing but the empty street. I think someone might be following me. I keep hearing footsteps, but when I turn, there's no one there. The young man listened patiently, his brow furrowing deeper. He, too, cast a quick glance behind her, seeing nothing.
Footsteps?
He repeated, his tone thoughtful. I haven't heard anything. It's pretty quiet tonight. I know. That's what's so unsettling. It's been happening for a while now. I know it sounds foolish, but I'm an old woman, and I'm just trying to get home safely. She clasped her hands together, a desperate plea in her eyes. Would you mind walking with me? Just to the corner near my house. It's not much further. A beat of silence stretched between them. Her fate, she felt, hung in the balance. If he refused, if he dismissed her as a confused old lady, she didn't know if she could make it the rest of the way. The thought of facing the unseen menace alone again filled her with an overwhelming despair.
Of course, ma'am. No trouble at all.
He said, a reassuring smile on his face. My name's Liam. Just moved to Oakhaven for the summer job at the mill. Happy to walk you. It's no bother. A wave of profound relief washed over Elara, so intense it almost buckled her knees.
Oh, thank you, Liam. Thank you so much. Her voice was thick with gratitude. I'm Elara. As they began walking together, the street seemed to shed its malevolent quality. The shadows, though still deep, no longer felt quite so menacing. Liam's presence was a warm, solid anchor in the terrifying fluidity of the night. He walked with an easy stride, offering polite conversation about his new job, the quietness of the town, how different it was from the city. Elara found herself relaxing, her rigid shoulders finally easing. She kept her eyes peeled, scanning the darkness, but heard nothing, saw nothing. The footsteps were gone, vanished. The very air seemed to lighten, the oppressive weight lifting. Perhaps it really had been her imagination, fueled by loneliness and old age. Or perhaps the presence of another person, especially a strong young man, was enough to deter whatever prankster or misguided soul had been toying with her. A blush of shame touched her cheeks at her earlier panic. They reached the corner of Maple and Elm, just a block from her house. Her property was large, a sprawling yard with ancient oak trees and a long, curving pathway to her porch. The nearest streetlight was back on Maple, leaving her yard in a familiar, comforting darkness. Or so she had always thought. This is my corner, dear, she said, turning to Liam, a genuine smile replacing her earlier apprehension. My house is just up this path. You've been a godsend, truly.
Glad to help, Elara.
Liam replied, his smile easy. You be careful now. Good night. He nodded, put his earbud back in, and continued on his way down Elm Street, a solitary figure disappearing into the darkness. Elara watched him go, feeling lighter than she had all night. The fear had receded, leaving behind only the comforting hum of crickets and the rustle of the oak leaves in a returning breeze. She took a deep, steadying breath, then turned to walk the short distance across her yard to her front door. Her relief, so potent just moments before, shattered like glass. The first step onto the grass, and there it was again. A distinct, unmistakable of dry leaves right behind her. Not faint, not distant, but crisp, close. So close it made her gasp. It hadn't gone. It had just been waiting. A cold dread, far more potent than anything she'd felt before, seized her. It wasn't just fear. It was absolute, unreasoning terror. She stumbled, her legs suddenly leaden. The air around her turned frigid. A sudden, unnatural drop in temperature that sent shivers racking her entire body. Her breath fogged, ghosting in the sudden cold. The footsteps behind her weren't following now. They were keeping pace. A rapid, dry rustle of leaves. A whisper of movement that felt less like someone walking and more like something gliding, weightless, just inches from her back. She didn't dare turn. She couldn't. Her agency was gone, replaced by a primal, desperate instinct to simply run. The house seemed miles away, a dim beacon in a suddenly vast and hostile wilderness. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum against the silence. She could hear her own ragged gasps, loud and ugly in the overwhelming quiet. Her fingers fumbled in her pocket for her keys, trembling so violently she almost dropped them. The sound intensified. Not just footsteps now, but a low, sibilant that seemed to swirl around her. Too formless to be words, too distinct to be the wind. It was a sound like autumn leaves skittering across pavement, but it was inside her head, scraping at the edges of her sanity. The porch light, a single bulb, seemed to mock her. So close, and yet so far. She was almost there. Just a few more steps. The front door, painted a cheerful robin's egg blue in the daylight, looked like a black hole in the gloom, a gaping maw. She could feel its presence now, not just hear it. A pressure, an immense, suffocating weight pressing down on her shoulders, pushing her forward, yet paradoxically holding her back. The air around her grew colder, colder than any winter night, a searing, unnatural chill that bit at her exposed skin, raising gooseflesh. Her hand finally connected with the cold metal of her doorknob. It was there, right behind her. She could feel a breath, dry and cold as dust, on the back of her neck. A phantom touch, light as a spiderweb, brushed her hair. Her mind screamed, a wordless, agonizing sound that was trapped inside her skull. She fumbled with the key, her fingers numb, useless. The lock clicked, a loud, welcome sound that was instantly swallowed by the overwhelming presence at her back. She could feel it almost physically,
an impossible shape, a distortion in the air itself, looming over her. It was tall, too tall, and utterly silent now, except for the rasping whispers that were no longer just in her head, but seemed to come from all around her, from the very fabric of the night.
Just as she pushed the door inward, a fraction of an inch from the blessed sanctuary of her home, a terrible magnetic pull forced her to do it. The third time, the fatal look back. She twisted her head, her eyes wide with unutterable terror, glancing over her shoulder one last time. She didn't see a person, or an animal, or even a coherent shape. What she saw was a profound absence in the space directly behind her. A shadow that absorbed all light, deeper than any natural darkness. And within it, a momentary, impossible movement. A ripple, like black water disturbed by an unseen stone. A glimpse of something long and slender. Not quite an arm, not quite a tendril, receding rapidly into the void. And then a sound, a dry, rustling that felt like every dead leaf in Oakhaven exhaling at once, right in her ear. The world went black. The next morning, Mrs. Henderson, Elara's next-door neighbor, noticed something amiss. Elara's front door, usually tightly secured, was slightly ajar, just enough to catch the first light of dawn. A chill wind had blown a scattering of dry oak leaves onto the porch, right up to the threshold, as if they'd been drawn there by an unseen force. There were no footprints on the disturbed leaves, no trace of human passage. Elara's body was discovered slumped just inside the doorway, her hand still reaching for the inside bolt. Her eyes were wide open, staring at nothing. A silent, frozen scream etched onto her face. There were no marks, no signs of struggle, no obvious cause of death. Just the terror, raw and profound, that had stolen her last breath. The police ruled it a heart attack, brought on by fright. The town murmured, speculating about late-night prowlers, but nothing was ever found. The house stands silent now, its cheerful robin's egg blue door closed and locked. The large yard, once Elara's comfort, stretches out, still and shadowed. And sometimes, when the wind dies down and the street lights flicker, a faint, dry rustle can be heard on the edge of town, just beyond the last pool of light. A sound like dry leaves skittering, waiting. And so ends tonight's tale. Don't look back. Thank you for sitting with us in the dark. If the shadows spoke to you tonight, subscribe to Spookin' Softly and stay close. There are more stories waiting, more voices in the walls, more things that go quiet just before you notice them. Until next time, sleep well, if you can.